Good evening, everyone. I'm here today with Mary Breckinridge. Mary is an esteemed nurse and midwife who is working in the field of frontier nursing. Thank you, Mary, for coming in to talk to me today.
Thank you so much for coming. I hope your travels were well and you got up here okay. I know it can be a little bit rough.
Yes.
And excuse my attire. I stay in this because I need to travel on horseback quite frequently, so I try to stay comfortable.
No problem at all, and thank you very much for taking time to sit down with me today. I wanted to start off asking you, what were your spiritual influences in your life, and how did that influence your choice of nursing career?
I grew up Episcopal in a very affluent family. My father was very involved in government, and we traveled a lot from Russia to Tennessee, to all over the United States and throughout Europe. And that didn't as much influence my nursing practice as my life experiences since that, but it definitely played a role in how I decided to go forward in practicing Episcopal. I got married. My mom wanted me to follow a more traditional background, and I got married before going to college. My husband died 2 years into our marriage from pneumonia, which brought me to New York to go through training in nursing to try to help other people who had been in my shoes. I met my second husband, and we had our first daughter, Polly, who died shortly after birth. And then we had a son we nicknamed Brecky, who died at 4 from appendicitis. And shortly after that, I found out my husband had stepped outside of our marriage, and I was devastated. That's really where my spiritual journey began. I really had to figure out what my new path was. And so I traveled over to France to help at the end of World War I with the devastation there, and took care of over 10,000 children.
Wow.
Decided to dedicate my nursing practice to mothers and children in the honor of the death of my children. And that is really what influenced who I am and why I started frontier nursing.
What a tough and winding road that led you to your nursing practice. So some of your clientele also have pretty tough roads. Tell me about what are the unique spiritual needs of the first people you care for in your frontier practice?
Although I hold my own spiritual journey close to my heart, I serve a clientele who has a different idea of what religion means. And so I try to keep my own personal religion out of my practice, and encourage those that work for me to do the same. They live off the road. Many times you have to travel across rivers on horseback to get to where they are. And I am there to serve their needs and not necessarily influence them more through direct care, and to safely deliver their children with not a lot of really resources at all other than myself and those that work for me. So their needs are very unique, as a lot of them don't have fresh running water. Their houses are not very well insulated. And so you have to just be ready to think on your feet and use the resources that are there in front of you. And it becomes very important to protect the resources we get brought in from other areas as well.
Sounds like a very tough, strenuous environment, a lot of harsh conditions that you're working in. How do you care for yourself so that you can better care for the people that are placed in your care?
My hobby is chickens. I love my chickens. I go out every morning, and that is kind of where I gather my strength. I go out and feed them and gather their eggs. And my employees know exactly where I'll be right after my coffee at 8 a.m. I get dressed and I go out and spend time alone with them, feeding them and tending to them. And that really gives me a lot of energy to go forth in my day. I also enjoy reading. I'm working on a book right now, and hopefully that will be out here in the next couple of years.
That's very, very important to take time for yourself. So, looking back over the course of your time as a frontier nurse, is there anything that you would do differently?
I thought about that, and it's very difficult to say that I would do anything differently because all of the death and the tragedy that I've experienced has really influenced why I even decided to go into rural nursing. When I was overseas, I noticed that there was midwives there in France, and that was something that wasn't in the U.S. And so I was inspired there to bring my training from midwifery in Europe back to the United States, where they didn't have any schools. I think I wouldn't have gone to France if I wouldn't have had the experience I had, and I wouldn't have been able to start frontier nursing, and I wouldn't have had the spiritual guidance from God to really dive into starting this practice for those underserved mothers and children. So I don't know that I would change the path that I took. I really think that it was God's will for me to experience those things so that I could go and do his work better.
Interesting, yes. Twists and turns in life normally lead you where you need to go. Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your day. I'll let you get back to what you're doing and serving and helping others.
Please help yourself to dinner on the stove. I will be called out here shortly for a birth that's expected, but make yourself comfortable and feel free to go out and mingle with the horses and the chickens and get home safely.
Thank you.
Thank you.